Okay, everybody. So today is April 9th, 2022. I'm Ian. This is Mindful Marketplace, and welcome back to our brand new publishing platform called A Tiny Revolution. This is for authors and artists, makers, marketers, creators, really anybody who wants to make a big impact through tiny products and tiny ideas in 2022 and beyond. All right, so today's quick PDF and audio recording is Community Building is Hard. Here are 7.5 ways to make it easier. And essentially, there are 10 things here, but they're not really fully 10. There are probably a couple of these really belong as one item. So it's somewhere between 7.5 and let's say 9 things on this list. But let's go through them quickly, because these are really the sorts of questions that are coming up really often in my own entrepreneurial orbit. And I'm going to tell you what I think really will move your own community faster, further, farther. Is it further or farther? Let's say further and farther, and really will make your life as a community building entrepreneur far easier in the process. So number one, use software as a service that is designed to build community. That's actually built from the ground up to facilitate the process of building a community. And I say that only because in the last week, I've gotten so many people who have asked about one WordPress theme or a plugin or BuddyPress, plugin in combination with an LMS plugin. And they're trying to Frankenstein together these platforms that do all these kind of, sort of pyrotechnics or they're actually trying to create these communities using all these disparate plugins and tools and tech that aren't designed to work together. And essentially, that feels very 2018 to me. There are lots of inexpensive tools, inexpensive software platforms like Heartbeat, which I really like, and I'm going to talk about today a little bit. Circle, you can even use Mighty Networks, although I kind of don't recommend that now. But there's so many easy ways of launching a community literally in 90 minutes that to spend a lot of time focused on the plugins or buying different plugins or ensuring that your WooCommerce e-commerce plugin is working with your LMS plugin because that's been updated but the other hasn't, and then your Buddy Boss theme or your BuddyPress theme is not being supported the way. All that is really heavy lifting and getting wrapped around the wrong axle when it comes to where your entrepreneurial attention ought to be focused. So use a piece of software or use software that you can subscribe to, like Heartbeat, like Circle, that will allow you to simplify the process of getting your tiny idea into the world, published and ready to rock and roll. All right, number two, use the onboarding process skillfully. And one of the reasons that I really recommend Heartbeat now to some of the folks who are asking is they have some really interesting kind of tweaks on the existing community model. And one of the things I've noticed in using their software is they do this introduction thing when someone signs up for your community that asks them a series of questions. That this is customizable, so you can actually modify this predicated around your own needs. And essentially what this does is it gives everyone's profile some personality. It's customized, predicated on their own sort of, what they like, what they don't like, where their wins are. Whatever they have default questions, I would change those. But that all goes into this introduction space, so to speak. And it's a great way of seeing a lot more information about the people who are part of your community. And it really creates a much more intimate experience, at least in my view, for folks who are kind of onboarding through a new community. All right, number three, don't obsess over the tech. There really is no perfect tool. And I say this just as a quick caveat to the recommendation to use one of these software as a service subscriptions like Heartbeat or Circle or Mighty Networks or Tribe or any of the platforms like that. And the reason that you don't want to obsess over the tech is there's really not a tool out there that is going to do everything that you need. And I find in my own experience, and certainly in the experience of others in my orbit, that most folks dramatically overestimate what it is that they really need, right? People get very, very interested in creating these like super unique, never seen before community experiences. And there's nothing out there that's going to do that for you on a bootstrap budget. So just start where you are and understand there's nothing that's perfect. Don't make perfect the enemy of achieving any sort of progress at all. All right. Number 4, don't move people around too much within your community. I've been guilty of this. And essentially what that means is don't have people sign up in this place and then move them to another community and then move them to, so in other words, if you're using, let's say, Podia, and this is a very good example for us, our partners.mindfulmarketplace.com community is hosted on Podia. And I like Podia a lot. It's a fantastic tool for selling products. It is not, however, the best option for selling community or creating community, I should say. So people who sign up for our products have access to our community on Podia as well. It's all part of the same sort of price package. Podia is awesome, but unfortunately, the community experience on Podia is not as good as something like Heartbeat or Circle or, Mighty Networks or Tribe or any of those sorts of tools. Members can't talk to each other. There's no like DMs between members. There's no chat between members. All these sorts of things are pretty commonplace now on these other platforms. But what I've learned is trying to move people from Podia, where they've purchased courses and products and digital downloads, to Circle, let's say. That doesn't work. People are not interested. They don't make that move. And essentially, effectively diluting the platform too much, diluting the experience, creating confusion, and ultimately people sort of just opt out of everything. They're just like, nah, I don't know. I don't really understand. Why am I going here? I bought this product here. Do I need to sign up for something new? Do I need a new login, et cetera, et cetera? And don't choreograph this sort of thing too much. Keep it simple. And where your people are is where your community should live, right? So think about that piece before you launch. Now, here's a really good integration, and this is number 5. Use your products to cultivate a community. This is I've learned this from Podia. It's a great way of turning product purchasers into active audience members within a community. But again, in our case, Podia just simply isn't the ideal tool for delivering community, which is a little challenging for me. But what you can do if you haven't launched yet is use something like Gumroad and Circle together. Gumroad has the product piece of the platform ready. So people sign up for a Gumroad product, they buy a product, they download a free, PDF or ebook or video course, or they pay for it. It doesn't matter. You can use Gumroad's back-end API integration to allow your purchasers to sign up for or to get access to a Circle space automatically. So the flow would be someone signs up for a product on Gumroad, and you can assign them, again, just using a toggle in the back of your Gumroad account, to set those folks up to immediately be invited into a space within your Circle community. This is a really great way of incorporating products using Gumroad with your community platform using Circle. All right, so explore that if that's something that's interesting to you. All right, use Cohorts, number 6, to facilitate genuine connections. Small groups of people on a learning path together with a shared outcome and experience is incredibly powerful. And again, Heartbeat is a community software as a service option that is now offering, or at least in May, we'll have a cohort-based community experience built in to the software itself. So I saw a video walkthrough of their new Cohorts feature. It's not yet available. I certainly don't have access to it yet, but what I've seen of it looks very cool and looks really, really ideal for those of us who are building cohort-based course communities natively within the audience experience or the engagement experience itself. All right, another reason that I like Heartbeat, they have, and again, I'm not shilling for Heartbeat here. I have affiliate relationships with all the community software out there. So this is just my genuine, authentic opinion on which piece of software I would select. So Heartbeat has these matchups where it'll actually allow you to set up automatic matching between members with shared interests. They have voice chat rooms and DMs that really facilitate a peer-to-peer connection that I think is somewhat unique in the community software space. So you can, for an example, use these automatic matching algorithms that Heartbeat has set up, where you can literally create, this sort of reciprocity of interest within members who share similar attributes or share similar interests within your Heartbeat community, and they get an email that gives them the opportunity to set a time to chat or meet up or whatever. And it's really, really a great way of facilitating genuine connection between the members within your community. So use that to your advantage. All right, this is really important. I think this is number 7. Don't underestimate the value of using fun, entertaining, engaging quotes or GIFs or challenges, and really kind of light conversational content that facilitates sort of, commenting and conversation, right? So for an example, and I say this with no measure of pride, but I had a much better response on a new community that we were testing last month in March using a bunch of templates I purchased for conversation starters, like Icebreakers. I bought them on Etsy. It was like $3. And for all of my self-important sort of like long missives and posts and sort of deep mindfulness-based practices that I was sharing, there was a much better response when I just took the questions that were part of this 100 icebreaker questions from Etsy. I purchased them from somebody who posted them on Etsy. They were silly. They were like icebreakers, sort of Google the third letter in your first name, a color, and then, post, an example. I mean, that sort of stuff. Something like that would only be appropriate for some communities, but you can always find out of all these little icebreaker questions that I purchased. I mean, there's infinite, variations of those that you can create, and you can of course always customize those to your niche, to your audience, to your topic, to the tone and tempo of your own community. So do that sort of thing. I remember years ago when I was first using Mighty Networks, when they were first getting popular, the content that was most engaged, or the posts that had the most engagement within the Mighty Networks host community was always the polls or the questions or the short, sort of succinct little conversation starters that people just naturally gravitated to, much more so than the more hardcore entrepreneurial sort of topics or ideas. All right, number 8, get out of your own way, right? If you're building, for an example, a course cohort, don't stress or obsess or procrastinate about launching it until you think it's perfect. Just put it out there. And the truth is, your members will actually create 30 to 50% of the content and the actual value, right? So it's not only on you. That's really one of the truly liberating ideas that I've taken on board, is that you think it's all about you, but in the end, it's really about the community. It's about the ability to emote and express and share ideas and connect with others who have similar interests or goals. And if you do this right and you set up cohorts properly, there's really an incredible amount of user-generated content that kind of gets a snowball momentum effect, and that you can kind of step slowly out of the way and let people sort of interact with each other and get a lot of value from your the experience that you're offering. All right, number, 8, I guess this is. So we're now at the 7.5 to 9 range. This is really important, and I recommend this to everybody, regardless of the type of site that you're building. And I certainly always recommend this to myself when I get wrapped around my own sort of, lens of confusion about how I'm going to profit from one of these communities in the short term. So think about 2 buckets: 1, asset; 2, income, right? The asset is always the long-term play, but the income play you have to consider, because if you don't, you're not going to make it long enough to see the asset appreciate, right? So you need to think of the community long-term as a piece of virtual real estate, an asset, something that you've built, that you've created, that has value in the world, but you need to also generate income in the short term. I really recommend starting with affiliate marketing. This can be a great way of, however you want to phrase it, ambassador marketing, a partner referral program, whatever vernacular or terminology or jargon you choose, selling services, for an example, or creating. And if you don't sell services, find others in your community who do sell to the actual audience that you're cultivating, right? And then partner with them and create these opportunities for your members to become ambassadors for your brand, for your business. Allow them to evangelize and incentivize them to evangelize for your content, for your community, for your courses. And ultimately, this will help you in the short and long term both, right? So look at creative and imaginative ways of building incentives for your members to share your content. One of the things I've really noticed recently as we're exploring this new project in the NFT space, you'll have to ignore some dogs barking in the background. I have 3. But nonetheless, it's incredible how many people are evangelizing for the products and the platforms and the art that they're buying and all that sort of stuff, and how that's really kind of almost artificially driving up the perception of value and the perception of price, or the real price and the perception of value in some of these communities, and in some of the and that's not always a good thing, obviously, but if you really incentivize people in an ethical way, you can get an incredible amount of buzz built for your brand, for your content, for your community in places and spaces that you would ordinarily not be able to, kind of discover on your own, right? I mean, we're only limited to our own, sphere of influence. And when you have people who are really willing to incentivize for you, it can be incredibly transformative. All right, I'm going to wrap this up quickly because dogs are now going bananas. There's probably a squirrel outside, which is outrageous. Okay, so the last thing is be imaginative and try to look at everything as a grand science experiment. Come up with a hypothesis and then test everything with a cheerful and curious attitude. Don't get too tethered to a specific idea or outcome. Stay flexible, make it fun, and be willing to tweak, critique, and ultimately, optimize and improve whatever's not working. I can't tell you how many times that I've gotten so depressed over some idea that I thought was going to be this home run that, was just irresistible offer or whatever, and it just didn't work. But when you look at it framed as a science experiment, like a hypothesis, I think people in this niche will buy X. I think this sort of person or this sort of product solves this sort of problem for this sort of professional. And then you kind of have a cheerful, light attitude about it. And then you say to yourself, I'm going to test this and I'm going to see. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to tweak it or optimize it or critique it or improve it in, the following fun ways, right? And I just find that's a completely different mindset shift that allows me to not take myself so seriously, my ideas so seriously, and to take it so personally when things don't work out exactly as planned, which pretty much is always going to be the case. Okie doke, so that's pretty much it. 7.5 reasons to make community building easier. Community building is hard, right? So never allow these sorts of, gurus and goofy gimmicks and all these sorts of sort of silly sales people, who are kind of this collection of car crash of, in my view, charlatans and con artists. Don't let people convince you that because they've done so well or they appear to be doing so well and you're not, that there's something deficient in you or your ideas or your entrepreneurial ambitions or otherwise, right? This shit's difficult. It's not easy. And anyone who trivializes that does so with a longer nose than not. So, keep yourself, stay focused, have fun, and allow yourself to keep growing. And, this is the journey. So teach what you know, do what you love, wake up the world with your work. As always, thank you so much for listening. I will have a list of resources if you're listening to this on YouTube. And if you're part of our community, you'll have a PDF that you can download with some extra thoughts on everything I've covered here. Thanks so much. And as always, have a wonderful afternoon.